sacred book of Islam, book of law for 300 million Muslims, the book whose fiery words, surrender to the will of Allah, was the flaming call to carve an Arabic empire out of the Eastern world, a flaming call to men of the desert whose burning faith toppled the remnants of crumbling empires as far west as France. Fierce legions sweeping out of the barren fastness of North Africa, where once had flourished the fertile granary of mighty Rome. Now as then, crumbling ruin and drifting sand. Now as then, its people illiterate, impoverished, living only with the hope of achieving paradise. To these descendants of the conqueror Tariq and the pirates Rabat and Salih, whose swords of steel once ruled Christian, Jew, and Buddhist, to these men, today their heritage, dead dreams of an empire long vanished in the shadows of the past. What glory there is left in the faith. 300 million Muslims are taught to believe only those ideas which existed when the Prophet Muhammad lived 12 centuries ago. Their faith symbolized in this desire to touch with one's forehead the black stone in the center of the great mosque in Mecca, birthplace of Muhammad, geographic center of a once mighty Arabic empire. Thus, from all parts of the Muslim world, the holy pilgrimage begins. Despite distance, despite sacrifice, 60,000 faithful go each year. The green standard of the Prophet, the signal for departure, departure for a journey to fulfill one of the 5 laws of Islam, a journey to Mecca. Long forgotten by these faithful is the golden age of Arabic tolerance, from 700 to 1200 AD, their height of power. Then their contributions to science, medicine, and chemistry, their work in astronomy and the science of mathematics, their contributions to law and the philosophy of ancient Greece kept alive by their scholars shone forth. Thus it was then, but the light of Araby, choked by restrictive interpretation of the Quran and Islamic law, dwindled to this: 8th century ideas in a 20th century world. But this is not a time for remembering. This is a time for looking forward to Mecca. This is a time to fill the eyes with new and wonderful sights, to fill the mind with a new and bigger world, a world of other men, of other tongues and faiths. For were it not for them, this would still be a journey afoot through a burning desert. This is indeed a time to look, to learn, and to watch a dying past live within the frame of a growing present. The holy pilgrimage is the dream of many, the realization of few. For this is a journey only for those who have proven that their families are provided for during their absence, a journey permitted only to those who have paid their annual taxes, a journey only for those who can stand the physical and religious demands of the pilgrimage. From Malaya and the Philippines, from Turkestan and Yugoslavia and India, from the 4 corners of the earth, Muslims have traveled to Port Said to join with the other faithful on the final journey through the Red Sea to Jeddah, thence to the exalted city of Mecca. Now begins the time of meditation and constant prayer for a safe conclusion to the holy journey. And now plain for all to see, the sought-for land, the coast of Arabia. The pilgrims face toward Mecca, their joy and religious exaltation mounting in fervor and intensity in prayer and the chanting of litanies. Ever nearer to Mecca, to Muhammad, to Allah. begin the ceremonies of purification, of cleansing oneself, of cutting the hair, trimming the beard, for from this moment they are in a state of penitence and purity. The way to Jeddah is hazardous and difficult, for here in sight of land other ships and other journeys have foundered, sunk on the jagged maze of hidden reefs. Jeddah, gateway to Mecca. The final invocation, the last stage of the journey. Each pilgrim must wear the ihram, a tunic consisting of 2 white cloths worn as prescribed by law. And by law, for once, it is allowed for women to accompany their husbands. Soon the faithful will breathe the very air that once Muhammad breathed, will walk the stony ground Muhammad walked. Soon he will be blessed forever. Soon. Jeddah, 45 miles due east of the holy city of Mecca. From here, 700 buses owned by Ibn Saud, King of Saudi Arabia, and sole purveyor of the journey to Mecca, transport those pilgrims who can afford it to the birthplace of Muhammad. For nearly all, a journey that costs more than 1/2 year's pay, for most, a lifetime of savings. All hasten towards Mecca. No one complains. This is the moment they have lived for, to see Mecca before they die. Yet how many can? For at the rate of 60,000 pilgrims a year, it would take the 300 million Muslims a long time. It would take them 5,000 years. Mecca, holy city of Islam, birthplace of the faith, confined by law within desert hills, a city centered in a sterile valley, a city unchanged whose walls once shadowed the Prophet Muhammad. A city that saw the ancient camel caravans converge from the trade routes of the East. A city whose spiritual power, sufficient still, dictates the lives of 1/7 of the human race. A city open only to the faithful, barred to the unbeliever on pain of death. For his eyes must never look upon the great mosque in the heart of which rises the Kaaba, a black brocaded structure decorated with a strip of gold inscribed with verses from the Koran. His eyes must never see the sacred black stone brought to earth by the angel Gabriel and set in the southeast corner of the Kaaba. The pilgrims perform the 7-fold circuit, reciting each time a special prayer, kissing the black stone from paradise, singing the glory of Allah. And those who await their turn for the holy rites drink of the waters of the sacred spring of Zenzen in the shadow of the Kaaba. Forgotten is the fatigue of the journey, the yearning of years. The tawaf or circuit completed, the pilgrim now travels 7 times the very same road over which the biblical Hagar wandered, frantically searching for water for her son Ishmael. This ritual must be performed on the run. Only the very young, the infirm, and the aged may perform this rite carried on a sort of litter, traveling the road from the hills of Safa to Marwa. Now the hour has come for Ibn Saud, king of Saudi Arabia, and direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, to lead the prayer in the great mosque of Mecca. It was Ibn Saud who wiped out the roving bands that plundered pilgrim and caravan on the road to Mecca. And the Muslim world is grateful, for today there are no brigands. Only Ibn Saud and his son Emir Faisal command order in a land of economic and political feudalism, a land possessing Mecca, thus possessing the allegiance of Muslims throughout the world. All 60,000 pilgrims from Africa, Asia, Europe, and as far west as the Philippines join in a solemn hymn of adoration to Allah. For one moment there are no rich, no poor, no black, no white. All are equal. Now. The most important ceremonies of the Hajj, or greater pilgrimage, are those that take place on the 9th day of the pilgrimage month, the last of the Arab year, at Mount Arafat, 13 miles from Mecca. Pilgrims have been pouring into the holy place, setting up a city of tents, for it was here that Muhammad preached to the multitudes his version of the teachings of Moses and Christ. Here the pilgrims recite the endless prayer of invocation on the very spot where Muhammad prayed. Here the pilgrims obey the Prophet's words, "Make the greatest number of friends at Arafat, for this is indeed a congress of all the languages and peoples of Islam, a time to rejoice, a time to remember." The slaughter of the sacrificial lambs is prepared to commemorate the fact that at this place Abraham offered a lamb to the glory of God. Thus, custom demands each pilgrim join in the sacrificial rites, partaking of the meat and inviting the poor to join with him. And so the last obligatory rites are performed, the stoning of Satan, to ward off evil for the rest of their given days, superstitions out of a pagan past. The 10th day is over. Those who can leave for Medina, where the Prophet is entombed. The others now leave for home, but to each pilgrim has come the honor of prefacing his name with the title Haji, he who has been to Mecca. He who has been to Mecca. His is now a unique place among his people, his honor so great that in all matters his counsel will prevail, even though in many cases he cannot read or write. Still, he is a man to be regarded, to be honored, for he has brought great joy to his people, something of the very holiness of Mecca and of the Prophet Muhammad. The journey is over, the pilgrim home, and the words of the past still rule the living present.